Deven Ghelani. Doesn't need much introduction to most of you. In fact, he's already been introduced, so I won't say any more. There's a common thread, I think, in our discussions this evening. It is about how we engage constructively, not uncritically, but constructively, with the welfare reform programme at various levels. Deven, with policy and practice, which has grown exponentially in recent years, has been at the heart of that. So that's what he really cares about, and that's what he's about. So, Deven.
Thank you, Paul. Well, talking about growing exponentially, we've got a couple of new joiners here today, so do welcome them. Joel, Siobhan, who are kind of just kicking off their careers in policy and practice here at this phenomenal venue, and I think it's a great way to start. I remember there's a former colleague here, Lisa Steidel, her first day was actually on the launch date for Universal Credit, I think, 29th of, I should remember this really, April, yeah, 23rd now, yeah. Where I think you began at the Sky News studios, followed by the House of Lords, which was quite, again, I think it's a good way to start your role at policy practice with kind of kick-off day. Others were less lucky, like Daniel, who was clicking and dragging on a spreadsheet. But these things happen. I wanted to, first of all, say a huge welcome and a big thank you to everyone for coming here today. I think a big part of working together to tackle poverty is about getting together and talking to one another. So a huge thank you to Paul for introducing everyone, for comparing and hosting. Steve and Donna for their kind words and for stepping up to speak as leading lights and shining a light on some of the activity and some of what they see in Leeds and Newcastle. But I know that's true of many of you here, and I think one of the things that policy and practice wants to do is become a beacon for that voice. Actually, this is how welfare reform or any major national policy change, this is the effect it's having in practice. And hopefully we can be a conduit to places like this. And a huge thank you to Philippa for inviting us and being kind enough to allow us to use this room for what I hope will be certainly a memorable, but also hopefully quite a productive and useful event for you all to get to know one another. And it's not just local authorities in this room, it's housing associations, it's welfare to work providers, it's individual policy experts, and it's also the policy and practice team, who I hope you all get to know well. There's 10 of us now, way back from, which is very different from 3 years ago when it was Lisa and I across my dining room table. So it is quite exciting, it's really exciting for me to be able to have the opportunity, but I think the exciting opportunity here really is a set of opportunities and set of challenges that we've heard about. I think there are a huge set of opportunities to work together to try and tackle poverty. I think there are a huge set of challenges in doing that as well. And I think one of the things policy and practice has tried to do is help mitigate some of the challenges and take advantage of some of those opportunities and do so constructively in a way that encourages and creates dialogue between all of the different organisations at all of the different levels, from MPs and Lords at places like this to organisations like many of your own, and frontline advisors and residents and customers. Because really it's that whole chain that's what I suppose turning policy into practice is all about. For me, the two or three things I wanted to say really were about why policy and practice. Some of the things I look back on and actually think, yes, actually we have made a difference here together. And some of the difference we want to have in the future and how we're going to go about, how we're hoping to go about doing that. So I think when I think about why policy and practice, there are two quotes that stand out to me. And many of you will have heard this story, some of you won't. But really my sort of history in welfare policy really comes down to me having been unemployed for a short time myself, getting a job and seeing what happens if you get a job and you're on benefits, which for me was not very much. Now I know that's not true for everyone all of the time, but the sense of actually just going to the job centre, then getting a job, telling the job centre I'd got a job, and literally being no better off, was actually just quite a powerful experience for me. And it comes back down to one quote, which I think resonates for me, and if I ever forget why I'm doing this, it's quite nice to be able to go back to. Which is, I called the job centre. I said, I've got a job behind the bar. They've taken all of, but all of my benefits. I'm no better off. This can't be right. This can't be how the system works. And the advisor, I'm sure she didn't mean it to have this kind of impact on me, but her comment was, Yeah, I'm sorry. That's the way you can talk to my manager, but that's the way the system works, and you can't do anything about it. And actually, I think perhaps I can't, but I think together we can, and I think together we can actually have an impact on changing the way the welfare system works, and only by doing that together can we actually have that effect. The second quote I thought of in particular, partly because of Philippa's invitation. I first met Philippa. Actually, she was interviewing me for a role at the Centre for Social Justice, and she may not remember this, but I'd been asked a question about the benefit system, and I was giving a technical response about tax credits, and I saw Philippa's eyes glaze over, as I'm sure it's very detailed and accurate about work incentives and whatnot. And she just stopped me mid-flow through this response and just asked me a very powerful question. She said, "What is poverty? What do you understand to be poverty?" And actually, just partly because I was thinking of this event, I actually went back to what I recall my answer being, which was, as well as the obvious side, the income side of being poor, not having enough money, actually I think there's another kind of poverty, which is this sense of not having control, or this feeling of not having control or agency over your own life, and feeling like the system has more control over your own life than you do yourself. I think that, as a view of thinking about poverty, that sense of actually wanting to move away from that view of poverty, I think we can all share and start to move toward, actually giving people more agency, more independence, and the sense of this feeling of more control over their own lives. And I think that's if we can move people in that direction, however small some of those steps might be for some people, I think we can all look back and actually think about that. That's quite an achievement. So that's, for me, those two points, those two quotes, those two memories sort of go back to me thinking about, well, why are we doing this? Why does policy and practice exist? Now, how do we go on from that position to go and have an impact? Well, I think there's lots of things we've achieved. I remember very well working with Lewisham Council. This is one of our earliest projects, working with Lewisham Council to help residents understand the impact of the benefit cap. You do pay rent, and the fact that your income goes from here to here doesn't mean what you're losing there is your rent, and your tenancy is at risk. Being able to explain that and communicate that in a way that people understand, as Donna was saying, it's not immediately easy, but I think one of the things we were able to do was communicate that in a visually engaging way that helped people to understand, actually, this is what happens if I don't do anything, but if I move into work, I can be better off. And actually, and through that process, I think 113 additional households moved into work in Lewisham compared with the control group, and I think that's quite powerful. Why I do this, in the ivory towers of policy, you can write policy reports, but the sense of actually helping households, that was something that actually became more real to me here at Policy and Practice. I think that's a big important part of the thread. We've done other things, so working with Leeds City Council, that conditional council tax support scheme that Leeds was talking about, that's now in effect, and actually hearing about how it actually is working to engage people more effectively in support. There's more work to be done there, ensuring that support is as effective as it can possibly be. But to know that actually some of that work is having an effect is powerful. Helping Newcastle City Council and Your Homes Newcastle understand, before people are affected by reforms, which households are likely to be impacted and how. So Donna's team can take proactive steps to help those households and sustain their tenancies before they get into a problem. That's really powerful stuff. And I think it's nice to be able to look back at some of that, but I certainly don't intend to stop there. I think there's a lot more work we can do. We can only do that together. So a couple of the things that we've just, the things that you'll see from us in the coming months is, one, to consolidate everything we've learned from building the benefit calculation software that we use over the last few years, and actually investing quite heavily in a new user interface, new levels of customer support around that, because actually it's not always the software. It's about knowing that actually when your advisor's got a difficult question, they can reach us on the phone or through the chat and actually ask those questions, and building up that knowledge base for themselves as frontline advisors, them as their teams. So we're making quite a big investment in that, and we'd love to hear from you just to ensure that what we think you want to see in that is actually what you do want to see in that, and that's really powerful. Just ahead of the rollout of universal credit, ahead of the rollout of the new work and health programme, I think that's getting that right. I think it's a really powerful, important time to apply everything we've learned and put all of that back into a new approach. Another way we've been working is to help understand the impacts that welfare reforms are having on individual households and the impact that those households might see over time. Now, we've been able to do that using data sets that local authorities hold. We think we can do that working with other data sets, housing association data sets, for example. But one direction we want to move from is where we're providing a snapshot of how people are impacted. So this is how people are impacted today, based on the circumstances today, how they might be affected in the future. We think we can start to turn that into not just a static picture, a snapshot of poverty. We can start to track that on a monthly basis and actually look at the changing shape of poverty in your local area. I think by understanding that, you can start to understand actually, if I am applying this sort of intervention, if I'm applying proactive support in this way, it's having this effect. You can start to learn much more about what's working to tackle poverty. And I think that's a different kind of revolution that doesn't necessarily wholly depend upon decisions made here. It's things that are well within the grasp of those at the front line, those that are responsible for implementing some of these reforms and steps that they can take themselves. And we only have the opportunity to do that by working with you, by working with yourselves. I remember the first time we were able to get hold of that data working with Steve, and the impact that that's had across over 25 different local authorities now because of the service we were able to develop, and the impact that we hope that's going to continue to have.